afternoon and welcome to our final Capitol Hill Ocean Talk of 2017. I'm your host, Kate Thompson, coming to you live from the Ronald Reagan Building in Washington, D.C. at Capitol Hill Ocean Week 2017. Don't forget to be part of our conversation by tweeting us questions at #Child2017 and we will answer them live on the show. If you've shopped for seafood at your local grocery store in the last several years, you've probably seen some signs designating certain fish as more sustainable than others. But where does your sustainable seafood come from, and how do we know it's sustainable? This afternoon, we'll be talking about how fishing can be more economically and environmentally sustainable through better technology. Joining me in the studio is Monica Medina, Deputy Director of the Walton Family Foundation's Environmental Program. Monica heads up the Foundation's Ocean Initiative, which invests in the United States, Mexico, Chile, Peru, and Indonesia to end overfishing, improve ocean health, and preserve coastal livelihoods. I'm also joined by Matthew Tinning, Senior Director of the U.S. Oceans Program at the Environmental Defense Fund. Matthew oversees the Environmental Defense Fund's work in key regions and nationally to promote healthy fisheries and a healthy ocean. Also with us in the studio today is Brent Payne, Executive Director of United Catcher Boats. Brent represents the interests of the owners of 72 trawl catcher vessels that participate in Alaskan and West Coast fisheries. Thanks so much for joining me in the studio today to talk about this really important topic.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
So Monica, we just heard from Seth Watkins about the land-to-sea connection and how farming impacts the ocean. The Walton Family Foundation is one of our signature sponsors. Thank you very, very much.
Happy to
here at Capitol Hill Ocean Week, and is committed to healthy watersheds from ridge to reef. Could you briefly talk to us about Walton's ocean initiatives?
Sure. First, let me say thank you for having us on, and thank you for doing this so that everybody out there who wanted to participate in this conference could see it, even if they couldn't get here to Washington to be here. So thank you again. We love to talk about what we do at the Walton Family Foundation. We have a large oceans program. We focus on 5 countries, the U.S., Indonesia, Mexico, Chile, and Peru, and we work with small fisheries and even large fisheries to try and bring them to sustainability. We believe that market-based solutions, economic solutions, are the ones that stand the test of time, so we work to try to get fishing to be sustainable in all of these countries. And it's wonderful work. We are funders. We don't actually do the work. We work with folks like these people here who are on the panel to make sure that they have what they need so that they can fish more sustainably.
Well, Matt, what are some of the unknowns facing sustainable fishing?
Kate, thanks for having us.
Yeah.
When we think about sustainable fisheries, a lot of the equation is working out how many fish are there, what the biomass of the fishery is, how healthy it is, and then how many fish are being taken out when fishing activity occurs. How many fish are being extracted and what does that mean for the resource? And we really feel like technology can play a critical role here. Fishing is one of the oldest professions, and it started without any use of modern technology. But as modern technology has developed, it's actually been, in some respects, a problem. It's fueled overfishing in some cases by allowing for commercial fishermen to be more, to harvest more stocks more efficiently. And in recreational fisheries, folks are increasingly using technology that allows them to identify and catch fish, even if they're not great recreational anglers. So, the good news is we feel like technology can reverse that trend. It can be deployed really smartly to help us work out more precisely how healthy a fish stock is, and also work out in really precise terms how many fish are being taken out by commercial fishermen, recreational anglers. And then at the back end, it can be used, we think, to increase business effectiveness for commercial operators. It can be used by regulators to allow them to do their jobs more efficiently and more effectively. So we see it as really having the potential, as it scales up, to develop win-win solutions for fishermen and the resource.
Well, Brent, Matt was just talking about the technology side of things, and you help to manage 70-some fishing vessels and talk about quotas and bycatch. How does technology help them to understand that?
The changes are new. So I think Matt's correct that the technology that has occurred within the vessel itself, a commercial fishing vessel, there was dramatic changes. The advent of the sonar after World War II, and the use of electronics on the vessel was kind of the big breakthrough that made fishermen much more effective at catching fish because they could see down into the ocean. That was 15, 20 years ago, sort of the technology evolved for that. But More recently, within the last decade, though, it's more the communication from the vessel to the managers and to the fleet managers and to the federal fishery and state fishery managers, and that where the advent of being able to communicate data quickly and cheaply off of vessels has been the greatest change, I think, over the last decade. And how do we use that? In our fisheries, we have agreed with the National Fisheries Service and the states to have 100% observer coverage. So we have accurate and precise monitoring of the catch at sea. And that comes at a cost, though, because in our fisheries, we pay for that. The fishing vessel owners pay for the 100% observer coverage that we have on our fisheries. And that can be as high as $500 a day. So we've been looking at ways to use technology to find a cheaper way that actually may even be better. That's like unbiased, or sometimes the observers have to sleep and we fish, so you don't have the observer on the back deck while we're catching fish. But, if you got a camera system on board a deck, the cameras don't sleep, right?
Right.
They don't eat either.
Right. Cheaper, way cheaper.
Yeah. So we've been exploring different ways of using electronic monitoring to substitute observer coverage and perhaps have a better monitoring, because you got a real a history of what's happened on the boats as they're fishing.
Well, so Matt, how do you take some of that data that's coming in and opportunities to update the data in fisheries management?
So I think there's a huge amount we can do to improve data in fisheries management. A lot of these systems have grown up in a pretty ad hoc way over the years. And they've often operated in kind of silos. So we'll work out we have an enforcement need, and we'll work out how to meet that. We'll have a need to go through a stock assessment process. So how do we patch together the data we've got? One thing we're really excited about is the potential to take a step back and to think holistically about how we use data in fisheries and integrate it for all the needs that we have, whether it's enforcement, science, management. And there's some really innovative things being done by regulators, by industry. I mean, Brent and his team are doing fantastic things out on the West Coast. Fishermen are some of the most innovative people in the world, so that means that we've got a lot of opportunities. But we think that there's a lot more we can do. And I just make the point, to the extent to which we're successful, it can allow for more fishing activity to occur sustainably. To the extent to which we don't know, we have unanswered questions, we don't know, we have uncertainty. We've got to build in buffers, significant buffers, to ensure that we don't miss the mark. The more precise we are and the more quickly we have that data, the better that we can be for fishing activity and opportunity, but also for the resource.
So I know you've been working on a report developed by the Fishing Data Innovation Task Force. I know you brought it with us. Can you tell us a little bit about that report and what's in it?
Yes, thanks for asking. So this was a really exciting process. We brought together some real leaders in both the fishing community and the technology sector, and folks have been working at the intersection of those two areas to really take that step back that I just referenced and think about what an agenda for the new Congress and the new administration could look like. So often, we feel like there's like I said before, these things are done more at the kind of line office level, working things out. We think that the new leadership of NOAA have an opportunity to really make this a focus. It's something that's not ideological. It's something that can be good for fishermen and good for the resource. So we came up with some pretty high-level recommendations about what progress on this could look like. We highlighted some of the areas where there's been a lot of success on this in the past and identified some ways to move forward.
Brent, you represent some pretty tough fishermen out there, Alaska, northern Pacific West Coast. So how do these fishermen help to ensure that we have sustainable fisheries? Because, I mean, is there even an impact? Are they making impact? Why do we need sustainable fisheries?
Right. I think the biggest change has been kind of it's almost a major shift in how people view the fisheries, commercial fisheries, where it used to be very individualistic, very competitive. All fish are mine until you catch them type thing, and I'm going to go out there and race for this fish, and it didn't work together.
Well, reality TV added to that too, right?
Yeah, that's for TV. But since the advent of catch shares, one of the things the industry has done is worked cooperatively together. And so they, instead of competing against each other, we form cooperatives. We assess ourselves to raise funds to help hire. You know, we have a data manager that we hire in our West Coast and Alaska fisheries, and all the data that National Marine Fisheries uses to manage the fishery, we intersect that. We send it to our guy. He's on Vashon Island, Washington, and it's because it's all computerized information now. It's all data. We know exactly where every single vessel is, what they're fishing for, where they're, you know, if they're fishing or they're not fishing, what their harvests are, and we kind of know that almost in real time, within a couple days, and that really helps us, especially with bycatch management, because we have really restrictive regulations from the federal fisheries of you know, that are incidental caught fish. And we're trying to avoid those. So we actually can use our data management to know where hot spots occur, and we can send messages out to the fleet and say, avoid this area. So we have the tools, we have greater tools than the National Marine Fisheries does in our federal fisheries to actually co-manage and manage the fleet of vessels that are out there. But it takes cooperation, and that's probably the biggest thing that's changed over the last decade, is sharing information, allowing others that you're competing against to see your information. That was one thing that really switched. It's like, you know, once you found a bunch of fish, why are you going to share that information with your fellow fishermen? They've learned to kind of switch from, and cooperating and sharing data.
Can I just jump in on this? Because this is a really stunning conservation success story. And like, if you look at the Pacific groundfish fishery, it was declared a federal disaster in 2000. And, you know, conventional management had really struggled to, in a mixed stock, to work out how you allow people to fish healthy stocks and then avoid overfish stocks, constraining stocks, rockfish, for example. And what we've seen since some of these bycatch avoidant techniques, which technology is a key role in that, plays a key role in that, we've seen a lot of those stocks rebuild ahead of schedule. I think we've got another one coming off the overfish list soon. And they've been put on the Monterey Bay Aquarium Seafood Watch List. They've got MSC certification. So these are all things that the fishermen have done themselves, working out how to avoid constraining stocks and reduce bycatch by up to 80%.
Yeah. Fishermen now, at least in our fisheries, they need to know how much fish they've, because they have individual limits per vessel. And they don't wait for the government to close a fishery anymore. They wait until they catch their quota, and then they just stop fishing. So they need to know that information, and that's why we have our own data managers to help us know that information.
This was an important change too, and I think it's interesting because people think of regulations as being onerous and command and control and the government doing bad things, but this is a place where the government actually took the step of making a regulation that actually gave the fishermen the opportunity to manage the fisheries themselves. And the biggest problem now is that with all this data and all this new technology, and the report actually points this out, NOAA doesn't have as much capacity to take that data in and do the management as they need. Hopefully Congress will see their way to funding some of that new computing capability so that we can bring the management side of it up to the 21st century, just like the fishing side of it is now. And that would be a really big win-win for the environment, for fishermen, and for nonprofits like EDF that have worked hard to get management into place so that we are fishing sustainably. And so, I love this success story. I think, when I was a part of the NOAA management team, we really put an emphasis on changing the way the fishery was run so that we could get to this place. And now, hopefully, we can get the technology to actually bring it all the way to fruition and make the government even more effective.
Right. So how has your foundation in particular been supporting the modernization of sustainable fishing?
So we worked with the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation to fund pilots in places like Alaska so that fishermen could try out this new technology and get used to it and see that it could be actually beneficial and help them be better managers. It's a lot like that last panel with the farmer who talked about precision farming. This is precision fishing, and we were just thrilled to be able to make that possible so that now hopefully it can go to scale. We've had pilots now. A couple of fisheries have actually adopted electronic management programs, but we'd really like to see the whole country go this way. So we were happy to fund pilots to get that going.
So how does that data, how is it being used around the world, not just in the U.S.?
So we've also now started to fund pilots in places like Indonesia with small-scale fishermen, much less sophisticated, but using the same kind of tools, very cheap equipment that can go on smaller vessels. And now the next step is to do recognition software so that the various different species of red snapper that are coming in from Indonesia can be recognized, counted, and then given barcodes and traced all the way through the fishery so that consumers can buy them and know that they're getting sustainable fish. And large retailers like Walmart and Costco and Safeway, they also want that kind of traceability, that kind of assurance that they can give their customers, so that even people out there who are just going to the supermarket can help solve this problem and make sustainability more possible.
Right. So I'm going to ask each of you a quick question. So where do you think we're headed with technology in sustainable fisheries?
I think we're headed to a place where consumers and individuals can actually make a huge difference and can do as much or more than the government in terms of ensuring sustainability and the long-term health of our fisheries and so our oceans through using their consumer power and retailers demanding that fisheries be fish be sustainable. I think we see that technology is going to drive innovation, and even people who want to make sure that the bad guys, the fishermen who are breaking the rules, are caught. There are things like Global Fishing Watch, so you can go onto a website and see where fishermen are fishing illegally. It's great.
Mm-hmm. Mark.
So I think one of the things I learned from the big brain technologists who served with us on the task force is that you need to design systems that allow for and incentivize innovation. And then you just, as technology continues to move forward in leaps and bounds, individuals and companies can innovate in that space and produce new tools. One example of that for me is possibly artificial intelligence being used in the EM process. So you could have, cameras and systems teaching themselves how to recognize fish, individual species. You can get to species identification through those systems. So they are the kinds of things which, I am not an expert at all in, but where smart friends tell me there's real room for innovation and improvement. We
won't need scientists anymore. We just have artificial intelligence. That's that kind of fish. Thanks, Matt. How about Brent?
That's a kind of an open question, but in terms of the science that's being done by the scientists, the stock assessment biology and stuff, the computer has changed, the modeling, and that continues to change as they be more, I think for the consumer, Monica's right, the choice, and like if I go shop for something, I can just scan it on my phone and I can see what Amazon's paying for it, and I'm at some store downtown, and I have choice, right? And I think seafood's exactly the same way. If you can go to a restaurant and scan a barcode, you can find out where that fish was caught, when it was caught, who caught it, and how it's labeled. The Monterey Bay Aquarium might say, oh, well, this is green light, eat this fish, it's great, it's totally sustainable. Or it can give you no, maybe you should not, maybe there's a better choice. So that's where things can go with technology. I think for us on the vessels, things have changed so much because of the computer and communications, internet communications, data transfer. That's all just a couple years ago that we couldn't even imagine that it exists. So those vessels are a lot closer to home now because of the communication and sharing of data. And in 3 years, we'll probably think that what we're talking about right now is like ancient history because something new is going to come up.
Right.
So.
Well, thank you so much, Monica, Matt, and Brett, for being in here, because it's been great to understand and better know that we're headed in a great direction with the technology for me as the consumer, walking into the grocery store to know where my fish is coming from, my seafood is coming from. So, and thank you also, Monica, and the Walton Family Foundation for putting together this panel and having this discussion, and also for supporting Capitol Hill Ocean Week, because we couldn't do it without you. So thanks again.
To do it.
So thank you all for joining us today in this excellent discussion about using technology to ensure our fisheries are sustainable. Capitol Hill Ocean Week will conclude today with a panel discussion on the importance and mysteries of deep sea exploration. So make sure to stay tuned. I also want to extend a special thank you to our signature sponsors, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, Vulcan Incorporated, and the Walton Family Foundation, as well as the co-host sponsors, the Campbell Foundation, the Gordon and Betty Moore Foundation, and the Ocean Foundation, because without their support, the success and accessibility of Capitol Hill Ocean Week would not be possible. So this is my last show, so I want to give a big thank you to my staff, Dana Rignisi, Liz Weinberg, Tracy Hyduke, Matt McIntosh, and also Brendan Frey in the production room, because I couldn't do this without them, and we couldn't do it without FutureView. Thank you so much for all of your help and great work for this week. It's been a pleasure to work with everyone. And it's been a pleasure to join you all this week on Capitol Hill Ocean Talk. I hope you've found all of the 3 days of discussions fascinating and a platform for ocean policy going forward. The National Marine Sanctuary Foundation and its partners brought the oceans experts and the most influential leaders to Washington, D.C. for the purpose of starting a dialogue that will swell into a wave of action for the nation. Visit marinesanctuary.org/OceansLIVE throughout the year for the Capitol Ocean Week video gallery. For the last time from Capitol Ocean Week 2017, I'm your host for Capitol Hill Ocean Talk, Kate Thompson. Thank you for watching and have a great rest of the week.